The overwhelming consensus was that they were not going to collapse. The Afghan forces, they were not going to leave. They were not going to just abandon and then put down their arms and take off.
But you abandoned.
So that's what happened, and they were surrounding Kabul.
This is such a bad press conference, man. He's answering basically no question. I mean, like, it's good. It'll be good to the public, maybe, but like, to me, this is a bad press conference. It's not answering any of my questions. By the way, he did abandon that airbase without telling them. Like, we even have testimony from Afghans at the airbase saying, like, oh man, like, what the fuck? Where'd they go? Where'd they go, man? Where they went? Like, I'm sorry, you can't dodge that one. Oh man, I am not happy with this guy. Okay, let's go through these things one at a time, okay? Okay. So I'm going to get into the big thing I wanted to talk about today. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about today, but I haven't yet watched Biden's address on Afghanistan and his update. So I want to watch that first before I say it, because I am very critical of Biden. I have a lot of really bad things to say about Joe Biden because Joe Biden fucked this up. And when I say he fucked it up, I mean he fucked it up. So let's watch his speech on this before I say anything else, because maybe I haven't seen this yet. Maybe the speech will change my mind.
And I want to provide the American people with a brief update on the situation in Afghanistan. Since I spoke to you on Monday, we've made significant progress. We've secured the airport, enabling flights to resume, not just military flights, but civilian charters from other countries, and the NGOs taking out civilians and vulnerable Afghanis.
Wait, did I say Afghanis? Or did Biden say Afghanis? No. Please tell me you didn't say it.
And now we have almost 6,000 troops on the ground, including the 82nd Airborne, providing runway security. The Army 10th Mountain Division standing guard around the
By the way, the reason why I'm saying this, he messed up, is not only because he messed up, like, just period, but he's also been lying about it. He's been lying about it, and he's continued to lie about it. He's kept lying about it. And the only reason we know he's lying about it is because his own staff is coming out afterwards saying, yeah, he lied.
We've already evacuated more than 18,000 people since July and approximately 13,000 since our military airlift began on August the 14th. Thousands more have been evacuated on private charter flights facilitated by the U.S.
Man, the last time he made the speech, he was bragging about 2,000 when we needed about like 80 to 90,000 out of the country, man. I hope, man, it came off as so tone deaf.
Even with the pause, we've moved out 5,700 evacuees yesterday. And we're working on a variety to verify that number. The Americans are still in country as we work on this because don't have the exact number of people who are Americans are there. And those who may have come home.
Can I say, this has gotten so bad, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, that there are Americans on the ground talking to news reporters telling them, I'm just going to wait till commercial flights open back up. We have no clue what the Taliban could do to them between then and commercial flights, that they think getting to the airport is so risky that they would rather just wait for commercial flights to open back up.
We're particularly focused on our engagements on making sure every American who wants to leave can get to the airport.
That still isn't the case.
We have been seeing challenges with Americans.
Wait. I heard he said that they could. Has that changed? Before, I thought Biden said that they could get to the airport. And I remember getting the reports about helicopter flights to like different hotels that Americans are staying at to try to get them out of the country. Did he say that they could get from the airport before this point? I thought he did.
For Americans, we have thus far been able to resolve them. We've made clear to the Taliban that any attack on our forces or disruption of our operations at the airport will be met with swift and forceful response. We're also keeping a close watch on any potential terrorist threat at or around the airport, including from the ISIS affiliates in Afghanistan who were released from prison when the prisons were emptied.
Yeah, that was something that baffled me, just the complete release. Like, just letting the Taliban letting them flood out. There are ISIS prisoners in those prisons. And right now there's one unfair attack people have been doing where Biden's like, it's safe to go to the airport. And then what they'll bring out is this. And they brought up the statement where the Pentagon warns like, hey, there's an ISIS threat. The problem was he was talking about that in reference to the Taliban possibly like shooting Americans. They have been beating Americans on their way to the airport. That is 100% a thing that has happened. But the ISIS threat is a separate threat in Afghanistan because a lot of people don't even know that there is ISIS in Afghanistan. So there's been a lot of people saying, why is Biden talking about ISIS? That thing was dealt with Trump, which is completely not true. ISIS is in Afghanistan.
And because they are, by the way, and make everybody understand that the ISIS in Afghanistan have been the sworn enemy of the Taliban.
This is true. I'm an idiot. I assume the Taliban and ISIS were fighting for the same cause. No, they weren't. See, the Taliban still, according to the Pentagon, and to be completely honest, I have no reason to not believe them when they say this. The Taliban, because they've had, and probably still do, have a relationship with Al-Qaeda. And ISIS is an offshoot that has fought Al-Qaeda. So there's one conflict of interest right there. Also, as much as I hate the Taliban, ISIS is also much more radical. The Taliban are really primarily concerned with Afghanistan. ISIS has other strategic priorities. They have fought in Afghanistan. So yeah, no, they're fighting for territory in Afghanistan. So, you know, it's different. So yeah, no, they are totally two different organizations.
We've seen gut-wrenching images of panicked people acting out of sheer desperation. You know, it's completely understandable. They're frightened. They're sad. Uncertain what happens next. I don't think any one of us can see these pictures and not feel that pain on a human level. Now we have a mission to complete in Afghanistan. It's an incredibly difficult and dangerous operation for our military. We have almost 6,000 of America's finest fighting men and women.
The KSK are Germany's special forces. They're like, I guess you could say they're kind of like our Navy SEALs. I don't know enough about Germany to say anything else.
At the Kabul airport. And we're putting their lives on the line, and they're doing it in a dangerous place to save other Americans, our Afghan allies, and citizens of our allies who went in with us. You know, I talk to our commanders on the ground there every single day, as I just did an hour or so ago. And I made it clear to them that we'll get them whatever they need to do the job. They're performing to the highest standard under extraordinarily difficult and dynamic circumstances. Our NATO allies are strongly standing with us. Their troops keeping sentry alongside ours in Kabul, as is the case whenever I deploy our troops into harm's way. I take that responsibility seriously. I carry that burden every day, just as I did when I was vice president and my son was deployed to Iraq for a year. There'll be plenty of time to criticize and second guess when this operation is over. But now,
wait, what?
I'm focused on getting this job done.
Wait, what does that mean? Wait, that's a weird. Oh, I know there's a lot of criticisms. Put that on hold. You can't just say put it on hold. It's actively going on right now. If it wasn't for the criticisms, then these Afghan refugees would still have to be paying a $2,000 loan to the Pentagon. We'll get into that later.
I would ask every American to join me in praying for the women and men risking their lives on the ground in the service of our nation. As events evolve over the coming days, my team and I will continue to share the information and update the American people on exactly where things are. Thank you. May God bless our troops, our diplomats, and all those serving in harm's way. And now I'll take questions.
Okay, so he said he's going to take questions. Now, this is different than before because the last time he did something like this, he didn't take questions, so I'm curious. Now, it looks like they didn't do the whole scramble, so it looks like he's taking filtered questions, possibly.
Afghanistan, but you also promised not to help to bring out those who helped America in its war effort. We've seen these heart-wrenching images at the Kabul airport of people trying to get there, say nothing of the people who can't get to that airport. You made the commitment to get American troops out, to get American citizens out. Will you make the same commitment to those who assisted in the American war effort over the last 20 years, number one? And then number two, what is your message to America's partners around the world who have criticized not the withdrawal, but the conduct of that withdrawal and made them question America's credibility on the world stage?
I have seen no question of our credibility from our allies around the world. I've spoken with our NATO allies. We've spoken with NATO allies, the Secretary of State. Our National Security Advisor has been in contact with his counterparts throughout the world and our allies, as has the General, I keep calling him a General, but my Secretary of Defense. The fact of the matter is, I have not seen that. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite I've gotten. The exact opposite thing is we're acting with dispatch. We're acting, committing to what we said we would do. Look, let's put this thing in perspective here. What interest do we have in Afghanistan at this point with al-Qaeda gone? We went to Afghanistan for the express purpose of getting rid of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, as well as getting Osama bin Laden. And we did. Imagine if that attack, if bin Laden had decided with al-Qaeda to launch an attack from Yemen, would we ever gone to Afghanistan? Would there ever be any reason we'd be in Afghanistan? Controlled by the Taliban? What is the national interest of the United States in that circumstance? We went and did the mission. You've known my position for a long, long time.
Oh my God, I hate to say this because I don't even agree with this analysis, but let's say somebody walked up to Biden and said, but the Pentagon just said, after you contradicted them, right, that there is still connections with al-Qaeda and al-Qaeda is still in Afghanistan. And that was the reason we went in there, was to uproot al-Qaeda because of al-Qaeda training bases and HQ, which was in Afghanistan. So the problem is, like, did we succeed in killing Osama bin Laden? Did we succeed in doing damage to al-Qaeda? Yes. But someone could easily just throw that back at his face, and I don't think Biden has an answer to it. The answer to it I would give would... Okay, let's let him finish before I start adding my 2 cents.
I was at the G7, as well as met with our NATO partners. And I told them all, every one of them knew and agreed with the decision I made to jointly end our involvement in Afghanistan. The first part of your question was, I can't remember now.
Oh, God, Biden, stop! No, Biden, stop! Border still isn't secure. Drugs from Mexico, what a waste. Dude, I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but neither Trump or Biden's border policy was ever going to stop drugs from coming in from Mexico. Most drugs that come in through the southern border come in through legal points of entry, not through anything that could have been stopped by a wall.
We're also trying to get out as many NGOs, non-government organizations, women's organizations, et cetera. We're doing all.
Why does he say the abbreviation, then say the full thing anyway? The point of an abbreviation like NGO is so you don't have to say the whole thing, which is non-governmental organization. So why does he say the abbreviation, then go on and say it anyway?
We can. In the meantime,
I don't know. It's a cherry pick, but it bothers me when people do that.
Blinken and I am going to be working with our allies to see to it that we can bring international pressure.
Some people don't know, Dylan. Well, then just say non-governmental organizations.
On the Taliban they're looking to gain some legitimacy.
He thinks that people listening don't know. I mean, I guess if he's being teacher here, then he's connecting what NGO and non-governmental organization means to each other. Yeah.
They're going to have to figure out.
I don't know, but that is also like a really good, if I was trying to name all the people who agreed with me, what I would do is I would say the abbreviation, then the organization for every single thing. So it made it seem like the list was double its actual size.
You just said that you would keep a laser focus on counterterrorism efforts and that you don't see as great of a threat of terrorism from
Here it comes. But the Pentagon just said
Afghanistan as other parts of the world. But if you and your administration so badly misassessed how quickly the Taliban would sweep through Afghanistan, and we no longer have an embassy there from which to run intelligence operations, how can you at all be confident of your assessment of the risk of terrorism?
We'll get to this later because it's not good. His answer to this was not good.
The consensus was that it was highly unlikely that
Wait, did he use the hypothetical of Yemen for causing 9/11s? So close to the actual culprit, Saudi Arabia.
Okay, oh, you know what? I can't drop too many truth bombs here, but every time somebody says like, well, so many of the people were Saudi, I'm like, okay, and what's your next point? Okay? You gotta go past that analysis. I'm not saying that the document shouldn't be looked into, but like people just say that and they expect it to be like a truth bomb. When there's terrorists from all over the Middle East that do a lot of other attacks, it doesn't mean necessarily any of it's endorsed by the government. You got to look a little deeper, okay?
The airport, as you mentioned, but will you sign off on sending U.S. troops into Kabul to evacuate Americans who haven't been able to get to the airport safely?
we have no indication that they haven't been able to get in Kabul through the airport. We've made an agreement with the Taliban.
That is not true, dude. There's so many reports of Americans who can't get there. There's been reports of even embassy staff not being able to get there. There's been reports of permanent residents who have not been able to get there. There was one guy who literally said on air to reporters, I'm just gonna wait till commercial flights start back up because of how dangerous it was trying to get to the airport.
Thus far, they've allowed them to go through. It's in their interest for them to go through. So we know of no circumstance where American citizens are carrying an American passport are trying to get through to the airport. But we will do whatever needs to be done to see to it they get to the airport.
Dude, this was after the reporting on that story I'm talking about, too.
And one more, Mr. President. Last month, my colleague Martha Raddatz interviewed Abdul, an interpreter who was on the front lines with U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Overnight, we received a photo of
reports do not equal confirmation? Well, wait, but wasn't he saying he didn't get any reports?
Taliban militants coming to the door of his home, literally hunting him down. Thankfully, he was able to escape, but he is obviously still in mortal danger. What would be your message to Abdul, his wife, and his 3 young daughters?
We want you to be able to get to the airport. Contact us. We'll see whatever we can do to get you there. We've got to get you out. We are committed to deal with you, your wife, and your child, to get all 3 of you out of Afghanistan. That's the commitment.
No, they said 3 children, Joe. They had 3 kids. That's 5, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Meredith Lee of PBS NewsHour.
You mentioned just now using every resource available for evacuations. Why haven't you ordered the military to expand the security perimeter around the Kabul airport? Do you have any plans to do so, given that will likely require more U.S. troops? And are you considering rescue operations to recover?
Well, I feel like you just answered your own question. It would require more troops, and it would also require approval by the Taliban. I gotta say, this is not like this doesn't feel. I'm not getting any new information. I'm gonna let this play quick. I'm gonna speed this up because he's speaking super slow. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna tell you how he's lying to you, because Biden is lying to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to follow up on something you said a moment ago. You said that there's no circumstances where American citizens cannot get to the airport. That doesn't really square with the images we're seeing.
Thank God somebody fucking said it. Jesus.
Around the airport, with the reporting on the ground from our colleagues who are describing chaos and violence. Are you saying unequivocally that any American who wants to get to the airport is getting there and getting past the security barrier and to the planes where they want to go?
I thought the question was, how can they get
backtracking faster than me
through to the airport, outside the airport? And the answer is, to the best of our knowledge, the Taliban checkpoints, they are letting through people showing American passports. Now, that's a different question when they get into the...
That hasn't always been the case. We've even seen on screen. Now, I would say maybe as a policy generally, that's what they're doing. But because of a lack of coordination from the Taliban, there are instances where reporters have authority. They have documents from the Taliban saying they can report here, and the Taliban will still stop them. So even if this is what he meant, that's still not across the board.
Let's assume the Afghan National Force had continued to fight, and they were surrounding
God,
Kabul.
This is such a bad press conference, man. He's answering basically no question. I mean, like, it's good. It'll be good to the public maybe, but like, to me, this is a bad press conference. It's not answering any of my questions.
Very different story.
By the way, he did abandon that air base without telling them. Like, we even have testimony from Afghans at the air base saying, like, oh, man, like, what the fuck? Where'd they go? Where'd they go, man? Where they went? Like, I'm sorry, you can't dodge that one. My God.
The overwhelming consensus was that they were not going to collapse. The Afghan forces, they were not going to leave. They were not going to just abandon and then put down their arms and take off.
But you abandoned.
So that's what happened. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Okay.
But we are going
to. Oh man, I am not happy with this guy. Okay, let's go through these things one at a time. Okay. So before I go through this, and this is the first thing I'm going to go through because he was talking about, we didn't abandon them. Okay, we're gonna go through each and every failure of the Biden administration. Now, not every single one of these failures. We're not gonna be able to get to them all. We're gonna go through the list that I have in front of me, right? Now, I want to say as a prerequisite that Biden was handed a bad situation. He was handed a bad deal, which didn't even have a ceasefire, meaning he was trying to do a withdrawal without a ceasefire. He was getting handed a policy from a man whose policy on Afghanistan, Donald Trump, flip-flopped with his emotions. At the start of the administration, he was bombing the Taliban to hell. He even dropped the Moab. Then, during the later parts of it, he goes into full-blown negotiations, everything. And even though those bombing raids were supposed to increase his leverage, it didn't do that. And he seceded basically everything in negotiations. The release of Taliban fighters, Taliban commanders, some of them were even in like Guantanamo Bay at some point. And even like just completely pulled back from like military operations. Oh, and said that instead of a ceasefire, even though that was going to be really necessary for a secure deal moving forward and for any actual negotiated peace, they said, well, this doesn't secure us a ceasefire. This secures us a ceasefire in the future. And that's not even to talk about all the times the Taliban broke it or anything, anytime they broke some parts of the deal. That's not even to get in any of that. But I just want to make clear that I'm not trying to wipe Trump of all blame. If anything, I think Trump built the foundation that led to this failure. But Biden's been president for almost 7 to 8 months now, and he's had a lot of time to try to recover from this. He's had a lot of time to try to do some jujitsu on this and get it done. We held Trump accountable after 3 years of being in office for not restoring the PPE. It is only fair that we hold the same standard for Biden when he had 7.5 months to do this, and he extended the withdrawal process. So, let's go through these one by one. I see people say I'm trying to run cover for Biden. Why would I be covering this if I wanted to run cover for Biden? I could just go on hours and hours, be like, you know what? Biden, he's just doing the right thing. He's getting us out of Afghanistan. You're all too, and you guys don't want to deal with the results of what that withdrawal means. I'm biting the bullet here, okay? Anyway. The failures on Afghan men who were cowards, that's a quick ban for me, honestly. I've already talked about at length that us labeling Afghan men cowards is disgusting. Anyway, let's go through this one by one. The first mistake I want to make of note is that we left an airfield in the middle of the night and didn't tell the new commander. If we are going to do these types of withdrawals, we are going to do them orderly. We are going to do them correctly. We remember in northeastern Syria, even if you didn't want to be in northeastern Syria and you didn't support Operation Inherent Resolve, making a tweet announcement in the middle of the night that you're going to leave led to what? It led to Kurdish politicians being dragged out of cars and shot. It led to chaos. It led to close calls with American military staff in the region engaging with Turkish-backed terrorists and the Turkish military themselves. This later, of course, led to engagements between Russian and American patrols and was all around chaotic. Civilian hospitals being bombed, artillery annihilating civilians, airstrikes annihilating civilians, and caused complete chaos. And one of the things you want to do is make sure that these things are done orderly. This was not orderly. This is in the middle of the night, handing off one of the most major American installations in the region to a new commander, and you don't even tell them. If you want to inspire a level of confidence that you believe in the people taking your place, because the Biden strategy was to set up the Afghan military with the best tools to get success, this is not the way to do it. Let's read a little bit of the story that actually reads some testimony from an Afghan airman who fought for 15 years in the region. The U.S. left Afghanistan's Bagram Air Base nearly after 20 years by shutting off the electricity and slipping away in the night without notifying the base's new Afghan commander, who discovered the Americans' departure more than 2 hours after they left, the Afghan military official said. This reminds me of how Russian soldiers found the American base and there were still Coca-Cola cans open, just sitting there. Afghanistan armies showed off the sprawling airbase Monday, providing a rare glimpse of what had been the epicenter of Americans' war to unseat the Taliban and hunt down al-Qaeda perpetrators of the 9/11 attacks in America. The U.S. announced Friday it had completely vacated its biggest airfield in the country in advance of a final withdrawal the Pentagon says will be done by the end of August. We heard some of the rumor that the Americans had left Bagram, and finally by 7 o'clock in the morning, we had understood that it was confirmation that they left the airbase. A general said, Bagram's new commander. Okay. So. Oh, and of course, U.S. military spokesman did not address the specific complaints of many Afghan soldiers. This is what I'm talking about here. Who inherited the abandoned airfield. This was one of the first failures. In fact, if you read testimony from Afghans in the country, and I'm not just talking random Afghans, I'm talking Afghans who are involved in military operations, specifically the people who fought in the Afghan military. Let's see if I can find the specific quote from the Afghan airmen who fought with the Afghan military for 15 years under the auspices, under the idea that we had their back. Let me see if I can find that quick. Edit this out. Okay, I found it. Okay. So here's an interview with the pilot who specifically mentions this in their interview with reporters. Anything you want the American public to know. Many Afghan soldiers died bravely. I've been fighting for over 15 years. We did not all just give up and quit. Yes, some did. Once the Americans left, we weren't ready to start doing all the logistics. The logistics, the maintenance, and the corruption really hurt us. I know people in the U.S. are upset that we didn't fight longer, but we've been fighting for decades, and some of us even longer. When the U.S. left, it specifically affected morale, especially how quickly it happened. Listen to this. When the U.S. left, it specifically affected morale, especially how quickly it happened. We woke up one day and Bagram was gone. Everyone got scared. It got out of control. I'm mad at many of the senior leaders who lined their pockets and simply vanished from the country. However, thousands of Afghan officers were not responsible for that. We were simply doing what best we could. There are a lot of Afghans who trusted the United States. Not just translators, not just civil society activists, but also Afghan soldiers. We loved fighting alongside the Americans. Please don't leave us behind. Please, we be great Americans. Okay. We've got this first point down. Let's go to the second point. The State Department was seriously considering making $2,000 loans for transportation costs to these refugees that are fleeing the country. This was, of course, scrapped after public pressure. And so that also pisses me off that Biden said in that speech, oh, you know what? Leave the criticizing till later, when the criticizing right now is helping make this operation go better. The State Department was forced to scrap a widely hated plan to bill U.S. citizens $2,000 or more for the evacuation flights from Kabul. They were going to bill American citizens fleeing the nation $2,000 or more. I am sorry, but the fact that this was ever even considered is disgusting. The hefty price tag drew social media outrage Thursday after it gained public notice. If in these unique circumstances, we have no intention of seeking any reimbursement from those fleeing Afghanistan, State Department spokesman Ned Price said in a statement provided to the Post. The cost was publicly posted to the State Department website on Saturday, but went largely unnoticed before it was highlighted by Politico's military-focused newsletter Thursday. So this isn't just some thing that was floated and then immediately just been like, oh, never mind. This was on the State Department's website, man. This was on their website. God, man. Okay, that's another problem. Now, let's get to this interview. This interview right here particularly pissed me off. And the reason why this interview in particularly pissed me off is because it had to do with a specific instance that actually got me a little emotional about the withdrawal. And it had to do with people clinging onto the plane when it was taking off and then falling to their deaths as they try to flee the Taliban. So, pressed on whether the U.S. exit from Afghanistan could have been handled better, President Biden tells Stephanopoulos the idea that somehow there's a way we could have gotten out without chaos ensuing. I don't know how that happens. Let's listen to this interview for a moment.
When you look at what's happened over the last week, was it a failure of intelligence, planning, execution, or judgment?
Look, I don't think it was a failure. Look, it was a simple choice, George. When the Taliban... let me put it another way. When you had the government of Afghanistan, the leader of that government getting in a plane and taking off and going to another country, when you saw the significant collapse of the Afghan troops we had trained, up to 300,000 of them, just leaving their equipment and taking off, that was, that's what happened. That's simply what happened.
But we've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
That is not a good response. Where this guy is trying to describe the turmoil that is being experienced, where these planes are packed full and that there's people falling from them, dying after they hold on to it because they're trying to flee the Taliban. And Joe's response is, that was 4 or 5 days ago, man. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, buddy. And the thing is, it wasn't even 4 or 5 days ago. What he's claiming here is wrong. It wasn't even 4 or 5 days ago. He got the dates wrong. He uses a bad excuse, and even the bad excuse was wrong. It was like 2 days before that interview that we saw those people falling from the plane.
The C-17, we've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
What I thought was we have to gain control of this. We have to move this more quickly.
Now,
we have to move.
I can try to put that up to bad memory, not lying. But it was still a terrible, terrible response to this line of questioning, where this person is describing the chaos on the ground and how people are dying, and he just dismisses that, it was about 5 days ago, who cares?
In a way in which we can take control of that airport. And we did.
So you don't think this could have been handled, this exit could have been handled better in any way? No mistakes?
No, I don't think it could have been handled.
All right. Wait. He is saying this, that it could be handled in no better way. That is what he is saying. Right now, let's just look up the word Afghanistan civilian airline. The U.S. recruits commercial airlines to help move Afghanistan evacuees. If it couldn't have been handled better, then why are you still requesting help? Why do you need more planes if it couldn't have been handled better? If it was prepared properly, why is it that now we're pushing through all this paperwork? Why is it that now you're asking for commercial airlines to help move these evacuees? Why is it that now that the whole country is paying attention, if it couldn't have been handled better, that now you're recruiting commercial airlines to help move these evacuees out of the country? How?
In a way that we're going to go back in hindsight and look, but the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing.
Isn't getting them commercial airlines helping them actually helping? I'm not, wait. I want him to do that. But don't pretend that he had this all in the bag or he was prepared for this if he's getting them what they need now. For example, let's say that I said that, like, I know somebody has a disease. And I'm like, don't worry, I got it handled. And I say that for months. And then they're at death's door. Then I give them the meds and then they heal up and they're better. Like, I can give them credit for giving them the meds at the last possible second. But they should have had that prepared months ago. We should have had this prepared months ago. He's been in office for 7 months. We can't just say he just got in there.
I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that happened.
So for you, that was always priced into the decision?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to be clear that we do know about, like, the type, like, people are falling from these planes. So before we move on to the next criticism of what Joe Biden messed up on Afghanistan, I do want to highlight a little bit of exactly one of the people who fell to death from one of those planes.
Spain Refugee Agency is urging neighboring countries to keep their borders open to allow people to seek asylum in light of the situation inside Afghanistan. These
shit sandwich is a shit sandwich. Are you telling me that Biden at no point could have gotten those commercial civilian airlines in the last 7 months? And now that he's doing it with, what, 8 days to get out of the country at the end of August, we're supposed to all give him a round of roaring applause? I'm sorry. No.
latest pictures show people waiting in the open near Kabul airport, hoping for a flight out of the country. The UNHCR says most Afghans are unable to leave their homeland and that those who may be in danger have no clear way out. The BBC's Secunda Kamani now reports from Kabul.
This is crowd control, Taliban style. Outside the
They thought they had more time to evac. They should have been aware, because of how Biden was leaving the Afghan military in many instances high and dry, that they may have not had that much time. Now, it is true that most of the military analysts said that they would have much more time than what they were given. But he should have had a backup plan. He should have been prepared. Definitely when the withdrawal was just a few weeks away and there was never any ceasefire officially gone through. And they were still negotiating ceasefires. And in the deal the United States made with the Taliban, when it came to the issue of ceasefires, that was down the line. He should have been ready.
airport, thousands of people desperate to leave. This is the road anyone being evacuated has to travel along. The Taliban.
It doesn't help to bash him, but Biden's lying about Afghanistan. We're going to get to that in a second, but he's literally lying.
Repeatedly stopped.
Like, I'm already giving him a lot of leeway by saying that when he said it was 4 or 5 days ago and lied about it, that was just because he didn't understand the question or he just misremembered his dates. But I'm not going to be able to say that for what we're talking about next.
Filming. They don't like the images of so many Afghans fleeing their rule. They've denied claims they're at times preventing some Afghans with valid documents from entering the airport. But many of those here don't have a visa. They're still hoping somehow to leave. I want to go anywhere else.
Okay. So somebody's saying that we did have a ceasefire with the Taliban. The problem, okay, I know what you're talking about. The problem is that the ceasefire wasn't even really held. There was still violence that occurred. And number two, it wasn't even a permanent ceasefire, which was what I think should have been negotiated. It was just a temporary. The whole point of the negotiations in Doha was the idea that they were going to have a ceasefire that would transition into a transitionary government of some sort, where they would negotiate an interim government, and they would have this like mixture of these two governmental bodies, and they would have a Taliban and Afghan national government, and they would combine. That's not what this ceasefire you're talking about has to do with. Permanent ceasefire. No, you don't even understand foreign policy. Okay, you're a fucking... Okay, I'm sorry. You have no clue what you're talking about. When I said... God. It was supposed to slide into a peace agreement. It was supposed to slide into a... Are you telling me that in the negotiations we made with the Taliban was under the understanding that there was no attempt whatsoever for there to be reconciliation between the Afghan national government and the Taliban? Okay, I'm talking to idiots and shit. Okay, never mind. Let me not get stun locked.
other than here, says this man. All the embassies and offices are closed. What can I do? Then Taliban fighters bring the interview to an end. The Taliban are everywhere you go in Kabul. They're heavily armed, but for the most part in the city, they're friendly. Outside the Canadian embassy, more chaos. Hundreds of people frantically scribbling their
I'm waiting,
names
trying to get to the Afghan football player who fell from the plane.
on pieces of paper, hoping it will somehow lead to a visa. The embassy has already been evacuated.
These people have no real information about what they can do to leave Afghanistan, but they're desperate. In fact, they're coming to us. They're asking us, is it true? Will the Canadians give me a visa? The fact is, most of these people will never get one.
This family haven't spoken to anyone at the embassy, but heard rumours if they turn up, they'll find help. There's war, misery. I can't even buy bread for my children, says this man. New footage of the even more chaotic scenes at the airport earlier this week. Some parents so desperate they hand their children over. And new details on the horrifying story of those who lost their lives. One of the young men who fell from a plane, clinging to it even after takeoff, a talented footballer who had played for the national youth team, part of a generation of Afghans now facing a deeply uncertain future. Sikandar Kamani, BBC News, Kabul.
At least 20 people
Also, can
are
somebody
known to-
please clarify the 3-month ceasefire? Because from what I remember, the Taliban immediately said, what's 3-month ceasefire, Lamau, and then that, like, popped off. I could have sworn that happened. So Dylan is promoting Nixon's Vietnam plan? Let's bomb them to buy time, then leave, creating panic? What? Holy shit. Let's go to the next thing. Let's actually get back to the criticisms and not get stun locked. Okay. So, the next criticism of Biden is that he keeps contradicting his own staff. On a consistent basis, he's been contradicting his own staff. Not on just one occasion, but on multiple occasions. He's contradicted his own staff in 2 occasions that I want to talk about specifically here. He's contradicted them on other occasions, but these are the 2 chances I want to go into. Okay, first has to do with Austin. Lloyd Austin, contradicts Biden, saying that Americans have been beaten by the Taliban. So, Joe Biden saying that he's not aware of any trouble befalling those trying to get to the airport, that they're all able to get to the airport. Everything's fine. Don't wonder. Don't worry about it. Everything's cool. This is at the same point when we were getting report after report of Taliban soldiers beating American citizens as they try to make their way to the airport. That's not even talking about the chaos caused that the UK is reporting on that has killed 7 people, or the amount of people who just can't get to the airport, period. Then we can talk about the one American who has actually said on television that he's not even going to try to get to the airport anymore. He's tried and he's failed, so he's just going to wait for commercial flights to restart. Now, this was on the same exact day that his press conference, his other speech, his second one, that we saw, he did that. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin told lawmakers Friday that Americans trying to leave Afghanistan have been beaten by Taliban fighters, according to several people who are participating in the brief call with Austin and other top officials. Austin's remarks to House members appeared to directly contradict President Joe Biden's assessment from minutes earlier, in which Biden said that the U.S. was not aware of Americans having trouble getting through Taliban checkpoints into the airport in Kabul, the only evacuation point in the country that is not controlled by the Taliban. So even if I wanted to give my most charitable interpretation of Biden's words, was not that, well, it's not that they're not having trouble getting to the airport. That doesn't have to do with it at all. It's that they're having trouble with the amount of people and some chaos, so it's not the Taliban doing it, which is the most charitable interpretation of what he's saying. Even that is wrong, because his own defense secretary is saying that the Taliban are beating Americans as they try to get to the airport. During the briefing call, Austin called the reports of Taliban beatings unacceptable, but did not elaborate on efforts to ensure American safe passage to the international airport in Afghan's capital city. He specifically declined to rule in or rule out the possibility of U.S. troops moving beyond the airport to help Americans and others get to safety. We're also aware that some people, including Americans, have been harassed and even beaten by the Taliban, Austin said on the call, according to multiple sources. This is unacceptable, and we made it clear to the designated Taliban leader. Austin added that with the exception of those cases, we can continue to see Americans and appropriately credentialed Afghans continue to move through. So that's the first problem where he lied about Americans being able to make it to the airport with no Taliban interference. Here's the second thing. Biden claims that Al-Qaeda is gone from the country. This is one of his main claims justifying the withdrawal, which I don't even think you need to make this claim to justify the withdrawal. He can talk about Osama bin Laden at length or the main hijackers or any of that. But one of his claims, and this is a claim from Joe Biden, that Al-Qaeda is out of Afghanistan, that mission, which was our original mission, was to go in there and bust up Al-Qaeda, has been achieved. But then, shortly after, again, his administration comes out and has to do a 180. Why? Because the Pentagon confirms, shortly after he makes a statement, that Al-Qaeda is still in Afghanistan. Defending the withdrawal of U.S. troops from, one second, let me move my camera, from Afghanistan, President Joe Biden said to the White House on Friday, look, let's put this thing in perspective. What interest do we have in Afghanistan at this point? With Al-Qaeda gone, we want Afghanistan for the express purpose of getting rid of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan as well as getting Osama bin Laden, and we did. Let's read that one more time. We went to Afghanistan for the express purpose of getting rid of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and we did. Biden claims that Al-Qaeda is gone from Afghanistan is false. As his administration acknowledged soon afterward, following Biden's remark, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby told reporters, we know that Al-Qaeda is a presence, as well as ISIS in Afghanistan, and we've talked about it for quite some time. This is his second lie. So this is two lies, possibly three, but I'm trying to give him as much favorability as say it in the most positive way possible, so we're just going to go with two. This is his second lie. He says publicly that we achieved the mission of getting rid of Al-Qaeda, that they're out of Afghanistan. Shortly, his administration does a 180, and the Pentagon contradicts him. This is after him saying that Americans have been able to clearly get into the airport, that the Taliban is not stopping them, and then his own defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, comes out and says, hey, actually, that's not true. They have been kind of, beating Americans. And that's not even to talk about the Americans waiting for commercial flights to reopen because of how much chaos has ensued. And the fact that we're doing these helicopter flights. That's not to talk about how he's pretending like he's prepared as much as possible, yet he's just now getting those civilian airliners. No. So that's two lies. And the thing is, I can pretend that nothing's going on here. Right? I can, but I want to be honest that Biden is messing up. I can agree with his decision to withdraw from the country and acknowledge that lying is bad and that he should have been more prepared in the 7 months that were provided for him up to this point in the term.
Balthazar $228.5. Biden seems like he's providing cover for everyone, from domestic contractors and administration to foreign fighters and countries, while admitting our interests being centered to our plans all along.
I also want to bring up the fact that Biden said about this issue that the buck stops with him. So if you want to tell me, like, hey, you know what? And thank you for the $5. I appreciate it. Like, what about the contractors? What about this? We can have that conversation. But if you're claiming full responsibility, then I have to give you full responsibility. I have to. And you want to know what? The American people are noticing this. He's taken a hit. And this isn't from some rinky-dink pollster. This is from the Morning Consultant. Voters are blaming him for this failure. And it's kind of hard not to. Well, of course, giving it full context, giving the full context of how bad Trump's deal with the Taliban was, is important. But what could he have done? If he reversed on the deal with the Taliban because you wanted to give him more time to prepare the ANA, all that would have done is make us look like flip-floppers and make it difficult to negotiate anything going forward with the Taliban, because why would they want to negotiate with us? We just completely reversed the deal. But Biden has made mistakes here. He has. No matter how much you like him, or you want to give him favorability, or you don't like how this is getting bad coverage, that is just a fact. And he's lied multiple times about this. And the American people are noticing, and the polls are moving in coordination with that information. What exactly is your prescription? Why would you have Biden do differently? The problem is, everything now is woulda, shoulda, coulda. Going forward, getting these civilian airliners is the best thing to do. Being honest and not lying about the situation would be another tip I would give him. Be clear that once you make a statement open to the public, you need to be 100% sure that your information is correct. Trust me, I am better than anyone to give that piece of advice. Anyway, Biden messed up on Afghanistan. That is undeniable. Denying this at this point would be denying reality. Okay. Hopefully he can stick the landing going forward. This is a political speech, it's not a foreign policy speech. The evacuations are ongoing, so it's too early to judge. The big deal that the Taliban is allowing it. I will reserve judgment on this until Americans are stranded over there for the last flight leaves. Look, you can say it's a political speech, but am I supposed to just pretend he didn't lie? Because he lied. He lied about Al-Qaeda, and he lied about Americans' ease of access to this airport. So even if it's a political speech or whatever you want to call it, doesn't excuse the President of the United States lying to Americans. Biden tried the pull-out method and blew his load on the way out. No, we all had this huge political spunk. Okay. That's one way to look at it. Also, everybody wants updates. Everybody wants updates on the Northern Alliance. Now, I don't have ties to this new resistance led by the son of the famous Mujahideen commander. But they did make progress in Baghlan province last time we talked about it. And it looks like that they have been pushed back. Dylan, you didn't have ties to the previous? No, me and Biden are close friends. We're close friends. So, the Taliban are deploying to fight and push back the alliance from taking any more territory. And they seem to have pushed them out of this province. The fighting is still going there, but they are severely outnumbered from the reports that I have read. And at this point, the Taliban are talking with the holdouts. They're going to see what they can do. I got no more updates except that the advances from the resistance, whatever you want to call it, has stopped and they're getting fought now. The Taliban are deploying. Do you think the U.S. should give them weapons and fundings, maybe? I think if we started airdropping them weapons and funds right now while our forces are surrounded at the airbase, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that might add some chaos to a situation that we don't need at the moment. Yes, let's start funding these people and airdropping them supplies in full view of the Taliban in front of the whole world while all of our stuff is at risk right here. This seems like a great idea, everybody. A firefight broke out between Afghan security forces and unknown assailants at the north gate of Kabul. Okay, well, this is just the goings-ons. The sad goings-on, but the goings-ons. I've been reading entire Reddit threads that saying the Taliban have been peaceful since taking Kabul. Wow, man, that's crazy. I'm sure they'll stay peaceful. The Reddit threads, man. You gotta listen to the Reddit threads.